Hey Algebra 2, this is Algebra Practice 38, page 361, number 26. So, the problem that a lot of people are getting stuck with on this one is the fact that there's no term that has an x. As we know, when we're using the quadratic formula, we have ax squared plus bx plus c. And in this case, we don't have that term here, that b term that's in front of the x. We have a c for sure right there, and we have an a for sure right there. We don't have a b. So what you have to do is you have to use your knowledge of math to think, what could have been there that will make this equivalent? Well, what's the only thing that adds to something without changing it? 0. If there was a 0 here in the middle of our 2x squared plus 8, then this would be the equivalent of our original expression here. So we could say that that was a 0x, because 0x is also 0. So this is all just to say that the b term must be 0. There is no b term. Alright, so now when we plug it into the quadratic formula, we are going to get x equals negative 0 plus or minus the square root of 0 squared minus 4 times 2 times 8 all over 2 times 2. Alright, so of course we still, no matter what, always have to do what's inside the discriminant first. Don't forget that's a 0, not a 6. That's a reminder to myself as much as a reminder to you guys. Alright, so we have 0 squared is 0. So we have, on the side here, I'll write it, 0 minus 4 times 2 is 8 times 8 is 64. So we have 0 minus 64, which is negative 64. So now we have x equals, negative 0 is just 0, plus or minus the square root of negative 64, all over, let's say 2 times 2 is 4. Alright, now, what we have here is two factors that are very similar and very close to each other, but not exactly the same. We're going to have x equals 0 plus or minus, the square root of negative 64 is 8i, all over 4. So we're going to separate that into 0 plus 8i over 4 and 0 minus 8i over 4. And a lot of you guys probably already figured this out in your head, that this is going to be 8i over 4, which is the same as 2i, and then negative 8i over 4, which is negative 2i. So there are our two solutions. X is 2i and negative 2i. Now going back to the original, you know, we've been talking a lot about how to classify different types of quadratics, as, you know, knowing ahead of time whether it's going to have two solutions, one solution, or no solutions by looking at the discriminant. Well, here we notice this 0 ends up playing an important role. 0 squared, so I'm going to point to it right here, this 0 squared is 0, so no matter what, if I add to that a positive number, it's going to be positive, and if I subtract, it's going to be negative. So what we can notice as a pattern here is that if all of these are positive, meaning that A is positive and C is positive, while B is 0, then you know you're going to have unreal solutions. So we have 2x squared plus 8. We have a positive A and a positive C with a B of 0. You can also think about this on the graph. 2x squared would have been something like this. So it's very similar to x squared. So 2x squared plus 8 must be something like this, where it's the same exact thing except moved up. Well, that doesn't have any solutions at all. So that's just a little trick. And your answer to number 26, once again, 2i and negative 2i, which you could just say as plus or minus 2i.